but it is an absolute customized presentation to you. This presentation will die after this and all that. So really I want it to go, since it is customized for you, I want it to go where you guys want it to go. So we can have questions at the end, but we can have questions in the middle. And sometimes my answer might be, I answer that later, be quiet. But we will try and get to everything. And so what Barbara asked me to do was just to talk a little bit about just Chaney Enterprises in general, but then to get a little bit more specific in what we're doing with our mine site in Loveville, which is a relatively new operation. We were there decades ago, back in the 90s, and are just recently back into that area. So just to kind of start off and talk about Chaney a little bit, we were founded in 1962 by Eugene, they called him Babe Chaney. That is Grandpa. So Hall Chaney, his grandson, is our executive vice president and is poised to become our CEO next. If that doesn't happen, I'll be very surprised. So it is in that third generation. Our current CEO is Bill Childs. Many of you may have bumped into Bill over the years. He is not a family member, despite all the rumors. But it's going back into under that family's leadership, and I think it's really neat. It's a credit to the family that they were willing to look outside the family for a while, and then bringing that back. And a neat thing that we have is we're looking at that third generation, and that's that seems to be like the tipping point for companies a lot of times. That third generation is a lot of times where there's too many grandkids and it gets a little too crazy or what have you. And we're not recording this, are we? Wait. The Chaney family has done a phenomenal job of keeping the crazies out. When I sat down in my job interview with Bill Childs and he said, it's a family company, I'm like, but families are crazy. I have one, right? And so, but they've done a really great job of keeping to the core and willing to change what needs to change and keep what needs to stay the same. So many of the principles that we have at Chaney Enterprises are the same principles that Babe Chaney started the company with, yet so many things are different and changing with the times. And just in this past year, we won Smart CEO Magazine's Legacy Award in the small business or the family business category. And so I look at something like that, and it's just that testament to knowing what to change and knowing what to keep absolutely the same. And so that's one of the things I think I'm most proud of in being at Chaney Enterprises, is that there's kind of that old school and new school thing going on within the organization. We've recently, as part of that change, we've taken our mission to the next place. Our mission statement gets smaller and smaller every year, or not every year, but every time we look at that. And we've recently updated that. And the main point that we want to have in that is we want to love what it is we're doing. And I absolutely hope that I communicate that passion that we talk about in the mission statement as we talk today. But understanding that, of course, we've got to do products and services, right? Otherwise, we don't make any money. But in particular to us, the importance of taking care of our employees and our communities and our environment. And we really try and back that up. We'll talk more about the environmental things as we talk about the mining process. But even with our communities, 10% of Chaney's profits go to the Chaney Foundation and are distributed within our communities. And that's just that. When a Boy Scout calls me up because he needs a little bit of concrete for an Eagle Scout project that he's doing, that's not even part of that 10%. So we do the sponsorships, the Little Leagues and things like that. And those things as well, above and beyond that 10%. And so we understand that we are actually taking out of our communities when we literally extract those raw materials in the mining process. And so we feel it is absolutely imperative that we give back to those communities that we're taking from. So one of the things that we've done recently is we've really just kind of focused on what does it mean to be Chaney Enterprises, and we've kind of found these 6 tenets. And the way we came about these is really cool. We actually surveyed our employees and said, what does it mean to be part of Chaney Enterprises? And a lot of these words came from what our employees said, as well as what the leadership of the company said. And so, hard work is definitely something. This is a team that will always be there for you. There is somebody on the clock all the time. We even have different managers are even assigned on sort of a random daily basis to make sure just that everybody gets home safe and sound that day, and we don't hang up until that person says that we hang up when we're done for the day. So we are committed to each other in that sense. Responsibility, that primarily when we look at that is in our stewardship to the environment, but also our stewardship to the employees. And safety is, when we look at our corporate goals, safety is our #1 corporate goal. It's a dangerous business. It just is. There's big machines being involved, and we need to make sure that everybody goes home, and everybody goes home with what they brought with them. And that is extremely important to us. The commitment that the company has, and what we're willing to do for the customer. I love this picture. I took this picture. This is out on the Chesapeake Bay. Not often that you see a concrete mixer out there. Not everybody willing and able to even be able to do that. But that just kind of shows how far we're willing to go and do those things. Results. This is for anyone that's driven up through on 210 in Indian Head. This is us taking this is a point of pride for me. This is us taking back a little bit of territory. Notice that's a really ugly asphalt road there next to a brand new concrete road. We're taking back a little territory there. So we definitely are focused on making a difference no matter what it is we're doing. We want to actually see something for our efforts. And then family also, not just, I talk about Babe Chaney and I talk about the literal blood family that there is. Sure, there is that, but the Chaney Enterprises team is a family as well. And I remember being on an event one time when I first got into the company, and it was a big event, and one person was tasked with it, and things started to fall apart and unravel a little bit, but you'd never know it because the family saw that was happening. And as long as you have that team that is just committed to being successful as a team, it'll just work out. And that, was a recruiting, it wasn't recruiting, it was like a school visit kind of job fair kind of thing that we were doing. And I was just great, awesome, incredible. And that was my first month on the job. And I thought, wow, I really landed in a pretty cool place to be able to have something like that. And of course, integrity. Our president of our board, Frank Chaney, who is Babe Chaney's son, he always says, in trust we thrive. And trust has a lot of different meanings, right? It has a meaning of like, I believe you believe what you're saying, right? But it also means that you can do what you're doing. And so he builds on both of those definitions of trust. And so that is absolutely imperative. If we don't have the trust and integrity, and we're not being honest in one part of our business, how on earth could you expect us to be honest in the other part of our business? And so we really focus on that as well, and trying to do the right thing, even when it might cost us a lot of money to do the right thing. The core of our company is this. So if anyone really wants to know what we do, it's this sand, gravel, concrete cycle. And we sort of start right around here with the mining. And again, we'll talk about Loveville a little bit. But we mine the raw material out of the ground. We'll process that and of course sell that. The #1 customer of our sand and gravel division is our concrete division. Over half of our sand and gravel and other aggregates go into the concrete that we make, and we use that to build our communities and to serve our customers. And then when we're done with that, we're able to reclaim that land. The reclamation process is just kind of putting it back. So there's no gaping open holes or scorched earth or anything like that. And then we believe, to the degree that we do this cycle well, we'll be given the privilege by our community to repeat the cycle. So many companies don't have that philosophy and struggle in land acquisition, in permitting, public hearings and things like that. Again, looking back on my first year on the job, I went to our first public hearing for an expansion of one of our mine sites up in Waldorf. And they asked, is there anyone that wants to testify? And nobody did. And I'm like, oh, phew, we made it. That's just what I'm thinking, right? I'm new in the industry. And And one of the, I think it was the planning commission, he goes, I have a letter from one of the neighbors. I'm like, oh boy, here it is, right? And it was a letter saying what a great neighbor we were. They actually took the time to write that letter and send that in. So again, if we can do this well, we will be given the privilege to repeat that. And as long as we can repeat that, the company will go on and be healthy in perpetuity and forever. Our goal used to be 25 years of mineable resources in the ground that Chaney owns and can permit. It's past 50 years now. And that is because people are okay with us being in their backyard. Not all the time. Great, it's not perfect all the time, I'll give you that. But it's because we're doing that well. So, sorry this is a little bit small for the screen, but this just kind of shows our market area. So just going down through the eastern shore, including Delaware now, some recent acquisitions there, up into the south part of Baltimore, kind of drawing that line straight down through DC. We're just outside of DC. We've just opened our most recent plant up in Gainesville, Virginia. There's a little gap right there. If I had to be a betting man, I bet you that gap will get filled soon. And then down into the Fredericksburg area, and then of course through here in southern Maryland. And so that's kind of our market area as we look at that, and we start to talk about the different products and things like that we're doing. On the red are our 17 different concrete plants that we have out there, and then the yellow are sand and gravel divisions. Half of those actually are associated with a mine site, like Loveville, for example, being right on there. So you notice there's a lot more red than there is yellow, and so we just kind of have to go where that mineable material is. We really are a victim or beneficiary, or however you want to look at it, of the circumstances. Sort of an interesting geological note. If you were to draw a line about down the parkway here, the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, more or less everything north, when you dig into the ground, is hard rock. So what they do up there, they do the big dynamiting and the massive 100-year quarries and huge ditches and things like that. Everything south is more sand and gravel. So we were actually just doing a little something at one of our mine sites up in Harwood, and a coworker was finding oyster shells all over the place. I mean, this was all underwater. We're opening up we'll have a mine site open up in Caroline County, Virginia within the month. If you're ever driving out on 301 and you go by the Caroline County Welcome Center, look real closely in the window. Hanging up in the glass, there's a skeleton. Okay, that skeleton came from a mine site. That skeleton, right there in the county, that skeleton is a whale. So put that in perspective when, as you're driving home. Right? You were at the bottom of the ocean here. So it's just kind of neat. So what we're doing, we're just in the sand and gravel side of things. Glorified landscaping. We scrape off the top, take out a little material, put the top back on, and move on. So this is our Loveville facility. What is permitted and ready for mining is 135 acres. That represents 7 billion pounds of sand and gravel material. So that is a lot of material that's out there. That site is, half of it is actively mined, and it's mined by the Bowles family, Tommy Bowles, for those of you familiar with him. So that is constantly going on. So we might have material under where the corn is right now. Well, when we do that, we'll just shift the corn to the other side. And so we're constantly able to have that value, that agricultural resource that, of course, is incredible here in St. Mary's County, available to us. As we're moving through our mine sites, we do it in a very specific way. We prepare 10 acres, we mine 10 acres, and then we're reclaiming 10 acres, all at the same time in a process called 10-10-10. And that way we kind of snake our way through the site, and there's really no more than 30 acres at any given time that might be disturbed. And so that is just the best way we can do that. We try, if we possibly can, if we know what the end use of the property is going to be, we will try to reclaim to that. We don't really have any plans in Loveville, so we're not reclaiming to any standard. But we had, I think it was called, it was McCabe farm up in Waldorf, we knew that a housing development was going to be there, and on 150 acres, we created a 10-acre lake as part of the process. One of the byproducts frequently of the mining process, because we're changing the landscape, is wetlands. So we were able to create wetlands where wetlands did not exist before. And in that particular case, it creates a nice waterfront community that didn't exist before. So this is actually the first area that we were mining in Loveville. Anyone familiar with this? What seems like a massive hole and a huge operation, the passersby on Maple Road here had no idea that it was there. So we pushed up these berms around the property to protect dust, noise, whatever the case might be. That material is, the raw material is loaded into off-road dump trucks. What we call the raw material bank run. So you have to scrape off, like I talked about earlier, scrape off sort of the top layer before you can get down to that. That is then stockpiled, and so we'll have a bank run pile up by our processing plant. That will get loaded into these hoppers and shipped up into the plant. So this is our plant environment and how everything works. We have Maple Road up here. The entrance for that's off of Route 5 is pretty far away. It's like a mile away down a dirt road. We have our scale house up here to weigh material, so we know what's coming in. This is our bank run pile right here. That's that hopper we were looking at earlier. And so the material comes out of our, comes up here and goes into a classifier. And it's immediately sorted into big stuff and little stuff. And so we call the little stuff fine aggregate, or sand, and the bigger stuff is coarse aggregate, and that's our gravels. So the sand, because it's so fine, is actually pumpable, and it gets pumped up into these tanks. And literally, we have this tank that's on a little bit of a tilt, and the heavier sand goes to one side, and the lighter sand goes to the other side. And from that, we're able to produce a more coarse concrete sand, and then also a more fine masonry sand. And this is just kind of fun with geology. I'm kind of a nerd like this, right? So this is our sand processing. Here's our concrete sand, nice healthy pile. There's our wee little masonry sand. So we don't produce a lot of masonry sand, and as you move through different veins of material through the site, those might ebb and flow a little bit, but just generally, that's how the cookie crumbles a little bit, which really annoys our masonry contractors, but we can't do much about that. The gravel, goes out into this right here, which is a shaker. That shaker has different size screens, and so the rocks or the gravel will get caught on the right size screen, and that will determine whether you've got a 2-inch piece of gravel, a 3/4 inch piece of gravel, or pea gravel, and whatever screen it falls through will get sorted out into one of these various piles there. So and then from there it's trucked out into the community in whatever cases, whatever shape it needs to be. It could go to one of our concrete plants. It could end up as a road base. It could end up as your septic gravel. It could end up as so many things. You know, I was just traveling to see some family up in New England, and I was driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, which there's no way to avoid New Jersey on that trip, is there? Right? So I'm on the part where the road's divided. So there's the car only lanes, and then there's the truck, buses, and car lane. And I was just kind of looking. It was busy enough, and I could see a distinct difference in the traffic. And I was thinking, why is it like this? And I was thinking, it's because people don't like trucks. So I started thinking about trucks as I'm driving down the road, mostly because there's a princess movie on in the car and I couldn't care less. But so I'm thinking about these trucks, reclaiming my manhood, right? I'm like, wow, you know, what comes from trucks? Well, but what in this room comes from trucks? What in your house comes from trucks? It's like we give them their own lane. We say go over there, right? But if we took those things off the road, what would that do to our economy? What would that do to our homes? Everything in our homes is trucked. Everything in our businesses is trucks, and so we kind of look down on these things a little bit, but we need to probably have a better perspective on that. And so that's been the eye opener for me. I'll tell one last story, and then we'll open up for questions. Not to get too political. I was born and raised a Republican in the Reagan years, so I'm very idealistic, right? And but I did so in Massachusetts, so I'm a little weird, right? So everyone in Massachusetts thinks I'm closed-minded conservative, and everyone in my wife's family who's from out west thinks I'm a bleeding heart liberal, right? So I don't know what I am. So I'm sitting there in my CEO's office in my job interview, and there's a picture of him and his wife, I presumed, with George Bush. And I'm like, oh, here we go. It's everything that I thought. The mining company shaking hands with the Republican president of the United States, right? And he said, do you have any questions for me? I said, well, I think we might have a little problem. I'm a bit of a tree hugger. And he smiles at me and runs out of the room. I'm like, I have really pissed him off, haven't I? And he comes back with the biggest grin on his face, and he hands me a book that is a catalog, an award that we won for one of our mine sites up in Anne Arundel County. There was a state award and a national award that we won for how we reclaimed that. And that is, for anyone who's into golf, that is Renditions Golf Course up in Anne Arundel County. And so, and then he's proceeded to say, I challenge you to go out in the woods with me right now and see which one of us can name more leaves on trees and things like that. And so this is a really cool company, a really cool industry to be a part of. I know I had a huge education process in coming on board and adjusting some of my preconceptions to what was going on. But I absolutely love it. Don't tell my boss this, but I can't believe they pay me for it. So with that, we'll see if there's any questions or anything like that anyone has. Go ahead.